Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome to another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Sitting here in the virtual Zoom studio, we are one half of the Vegas Squares this week. The Tonys decided that we recorded way too late this evening for their bedtimes. So I got myself and we got Spike here. Spike's green again. He's the Hulk.
What is going on with your video? I look fine on my side.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe me saying that it won't show up on the finished product, so we'll have to find out. But if it does show up on the finished product, this may become an audio podcast only this week. Or it might be Spike comes in third place and you don't want to see what he gets angry in third place.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm still ahead of Tony Johnson.
That's true. That's true. Well, again, we are the Vegas Squares, and it is Week 15 in the NFL. It is the weekend, so it is time for our Week 15 picks. I trust that you do have the Tony's picks there, Mr. Spike, though.
Yes, I do. I got both of them. I got Tony Johnson's a couple hours ago. I got Tokens about 5 minutes before we decided to do this.
Great. So that means he's still awake. He can't even record. He's still awake. Can't trust the guy. But there is a caveat. We do have Saturday games. Obviously, if you're watching this on Saturday at 10 p.m. on Zingo TV, then, those have already occurred. So our contest is literally only Sunday games and Monday games. Which is what we said. So the Saturday games, unfortunately, were out. Although I want to talk about that Monday night game that we had between Cleveland and Baltimore. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. That was one of the craziest, maybe one of the most exciting Monday night games we've seen in the better part of a decade.
Yeah, I actually didn't get a chance to watch that one. I did hear about the ending, though. And I know, obviously we want to get into it, but I know presumably part of what you want to talk about is like the FanDuel Sportsbook starting to refund some money for people that had the Cleveland +3 line on that.
Yes, that is correct. I was going to get into that because, Cleveland, that line moved a lot. I know that when you made your pick, you got Cleveland +2.5, but I believe that FanDuel refunded everybody's pregame bets of 3, 3.5, 4, and I guess 4.5. I didn't realize the line got that high up into the pregame betting line. They did not refund in-play betting, which, of course, everyone on social media, well, the what about me's, the guys on social media betting the in-play were not refunded. But I think we've talked about this before on a podcast about FanDuel refunding bets before. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I mean, as a business, if they want to do it, I feel like it sets a weird precedent that anytime there's a bad beat, that all of these sports books are under the microscope to give money back to anyone who takes a bad beat. And that's, in my opinion, part of kind of sports gambling. Bad beats exist. I mean, Scott Van Pelt makes a show on it every week.
Yeah, bad beats exist, but I think from FanDuel's perspective, well, there's probably two things from FanDuel's perspective. Number one, the amount of action that they had on this game for Cleveland couldn't have been that high.
Okay.
So if they were looking at it just from like a dollars and cents place, they're not giving up that much money. And what they are giving up is coming back as credit. So it's not like they're actually losing money. Half of that money that they're refunding presumably is going to get lost back as part of a bet, so therefore they're only giving out half. But I think the other side of it is just publicity, because I mean, think about it. We're talking about FanDuel. FanDuel doesn't exist in Las Vegas, or at least it doesn't operate in Las Vegas as
Correct.
a recognized sports book yet. So, but we in Las Vegas are talking about FanDuel, so we're giving them publicity because they did something that's outside of the norm. So I think from those two perspectives, the decision to refund the bets makes sense. I kind of like it as a bettor, knowing that there's a chance, even if it's not expected, it's nice to have that kind of like bet insurance, I guess you would call it, when you have those wacky bad beats. I think, I don't know, just it's nice dealing with a book that's willing to say, yeah, you kind of took one on the chin. Here's your $5 back.
Yeah, that's the worst part is these guys are probably whining over $5, $10, $15 bets. The other thing is really FanDuel came under some scrutiny now too. They both FanDuel and DraftKings were under the microscope before. I don't remember how many years ago, but alleged cheating scandals, and they were setting lineups. Well, the guy who won, I believe it was the $250,000 contest this Thursday between the Chargers and the Raiders, had Marcus Mariota in his lineup. I mean, if that's not a bot, that's a hell of a play because he ended up winning the contest. He had obviously other players who went off, but I mean, who puts the backup quarterback in their FanDuel lineup? Not me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risky play, but obviously it saved him a bunch of money to kind of stack the rest of his lineup, and you just have to hope that the quarterbacks don't really matter in the end, which maybe they don't. I don't know the scoring systems on FanDuel well enough to know if this play was genius or just pure dumb luck.
I would imagine it had to be genius. I obviously don't have the facts and figures in front of me, but I'd be willing to go out on a limb that he was either the one and only or one of a handful of FanDuel players who put Marcus Mariota into their lineup. But it brings back those rumblings of the cheating allegation. Now, I'm not accusing FanDuel of cheating, but the Marcus Mariota play does seem a little bit sketch in my opinion. So anyways, moving on here. Turn the page. We're in week 15 right here. Currently, Token still sitting in first place. But Spike, why don't you go ahead and recap the standings here in the Vegas Squares Pick'em contest for the NFL?
Yeah, Token is in first place, but he did not have a good week last week, going 1-4. So his lead shrunk by a couple of points over me in second place. Token sitting at 40 points. I have 37. Tony Johnson currently sitting at 33, and Aaron bringing up the rear at 30. So you are currently 10 points behind Token Tony, which, we've got 3 betting weeks left. That's that's a tall mountain to climb right there.
Hey, why don't worry about me. You don't get a medal or money for finishing in second. You only get the money if you finish in first. So
That's
as much as you like to stick needles in every week, I just reminder who's in first place, and it's not you.
I understand that. I know all about getting paid because I did get paid last year after winning the contest. So I have the experience there. Don't worry.
Yeah, but this year I think you mailed it in at halftime. So
I've had a couple of stinkers, especially these last couple of weeks. But yeah, we'll see.
So, all right. Well, I want to thank the sponsors here. Obviously, first and foremost, the ones that air us, 12 Ounce Sports, Zingo TV. YouTube is also where you can find us. And our newest hoster, I guess you could say, is Spotify. If you want to listen to us on Spotify, you just search 12 Ounce Sports, and us and all the 12 Ounce Sports shows are there. Obviously, you can check us out. We write articles and post our podcast at 12ouncesportsnetwork.com. While you're there, please check out the 12 Ounce store where you can find everything from polos, coffee mugs, beach towels, and so much more. Once again, 12ouncesportsnetwork.com. Our title sponsors are Vice Golf and Fanatics. We are sponsored affiliates with them. Our affiliate links are located at lvsquares.com. You click the sponsorship page, and then you can directly click the links on the sponsorship page. It'll take you right to Vice Golf and Fanatics. Please make sure to use those because we do get supported by them with a small commission, and as much as you can support them, they continue to support us, and we greatly appreciate it, especially this holiday season. Again, lvsquares.com, click the sponsorship tab, and the links are right there. Our newest sponsor is one that I'm really interested in checking out. I haven't had the time to check it out. Spike, you and I talked about this maybe about a year ago. It's a new bet tracker app called Heater, Heatr. And as they described to me, I've had several conversations with them, that they are an independent sports data and entertainment company focused on enhancing your sports betting experience. They are the leading mobile sports bet tracker designed for real-time bet monitoring and live in-play scoring, all in one place. So keep track of your bankroll management with the new Heater Sports app. It's only available on iPhone currently, but it's very, very soon coming to the Android device as well. So that's 1 point for Team iPhone, the Heater Sports app. Also need to let you know about our other sponsors. They'll be scrolling across the screen at the bottom. down on the ticker, Wicked Cuts Jerky, InTheHoleGolf.com, DC4L Custom Tees, Pro-Am Customizations, and, of course, the little guy, the OG, ShyPoker.com. Also, we got to let 12-Ounce Sports pay the bills. They've got a couple of ads to send your way. So we're going to be back on the other side here with the Week 15 preview for the Vegas Squares podcast. We'll see you in just a little bit.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done. We're pretty good at solving problems. COVID-19 is the biggest challenge we've had to face. But challenges are what motivate us. Like flying masks to our employees around the world. We're doing everything we can to get you what you need, and doing everything we can to keep our people safe. I'm former Navy pilot Sarah Rhodes, and I'm proud to lead our Amazon Air network.
All right, and we are back with the Vegas Squares podcast. Myself and Spike, no Token Tony, no Tony Johnson. This week we are previewing the Week 15 slate in the NFL. Remember, we do have 2 Saturday games. Again, if you're listening or watching on Zingo TV, those have already occurred. If you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, or even at the 12-Ounce Sports Network website, obviously we are not going to preview those because that is not part of our contest. Remember, we take the lines at recording with the Westgate Superbook. And again, if for our picks, if the number lands on a flat number, we've got to move it a half a point away from us. Thanks to, Spike's suggestion, and apparently I voted for it too. So,
yeah, well, you didn't necessarily vote for it. You said, I don't care one way or the other.
Yeah.
And then after Token Tony said the same thing, you said, all right, fuck it, we'll do the moving a half point. So
fair enough. That's like looking at your ballot and choosing none of the above. You just get stuck with what everybody else picks.
pretty much.
All right, so that leaves Carolina, Green Bay, and Buffalo, Denver out of the equation. Just for foreshadowing purposes, for the show that airs on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, I'm going to say just straight up, we get a Green Bay and a Buffalo win. I think you agree with that, right?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to look at the dates these games are being played. So if we did allow Saturday games, I was actually on the under in that Green Bay Carolina game. But I think you're right. A Buffalo and Green Bay win sounds pretty accurate to me.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, then we will move on to the first game on the Sunday slate that I have here is Houston at Indianapolis. Now, Houston and Indianapolis played just a couple of weeks ago. It was very close. Houston kind of blew it at the end there. They were, I think, 2 yards away from actually taking the lead and maybe winning that game against Indianapolis, which would have been a huge blow to the Colts, but they did not. And the Colts, who are 9-4, are tied with the Titans right now and obviously cannot afford to lose this game. They are 7.5-point favorites at home against the Texans. The total is 50.5 in this one. Texans last week got their doors blown in by the Bears. The Hall of Famer Trubisky just looked really good out there. And the Texans were officially eliminated from playoff contention. So to me, Spike, this week, really Deshaun Watson, there was some talks, I guess, in the media who asked Romeo Crennel this week, are you thinking about shutting down Deshaun Watson? Romeo Crennel quickly shut down those talks and said that if he shut Deshaun Watson down, they might as well not even play the last 3 games. And I think he said that in jest, but I really think that even though he may not be the coach next year, the Houston franchise wants to shut Deshaun Watson down for obvious reasons of injury. The only thing I can think of really for Houston in this motivation, or this lack of motivation scenario, is maybe playing spoiler to a division opponent here.
Yeah, I think the divisional thing is huge, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Houston actually did shut down Deshaun Watson, not just because of injury concern. Well, I'm partially because of injury concerns, but also they can't keep him standing upright. This offensive line stinks. They just flat out stink. I think Deshaun Watson's been sacked third most in the league, bordering on like 40 sacks this year. That's just not acceptable for an NFL team that's trying to compete for a division lead. Obviously, they're out of it now in Week 15, but coming into the season, there were high hopes for this Houston team. This is a game where 2 weeks ago I was actually on Houston, and then Deshaun Watson, I forget if it was a fumble or an interception, whatever it was.
I think it was a high snap, and he ended up fumbling it. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, whatever the case was, it was a turnover at about the 2-yard line when they should have won the game, and it's just these kinds of mistakes are just killer in the NFL. You can't make them. You can't make them consistently. You certainly can't make them against a divisional opponent. So this is not one that I am on this week, but it's certain. I don't think I'm on, actually, now that I say that. I am not on. Oh, yes, I am. I'm on the total this week. But I think this is one where we have to really pay attention to Deshaun Watson, not just how he's playing, but how he looks. Because if he looks injured and they keep him in there, then that's just bad news for that team. And that's not a team that is committed or dedicated to winning in this league right now. It's just this is not a well-managed team. They have to completely blow it up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that really the reason that Deshaun Watson would stay in, and if they don't win this game, they may take him out for the last two. But if Romeo Crennel thinks there's some inkling that he's going to be the coach next year, that may be the only reason why he keeps Deshaun Watson in. Other than that, I don't see a positive coming out of this. I mean, maybe you go 7-9 and there's some hope for the future. That's the only thing. And then maybe that gets Romeo Crennel a job. I highly doubt it, but we'll see.
Yeah, this is a weird one too, because all of us are on New England, Miami. All of us are on Philly and Arizona. Token is the only one that's not on Houston and Indy. So for the four of us, 3 of the 5 games, we were almost all on the same games. Different lines, like different sides. We've not had a consensus pick at all this year.
That's still pretty big considering it's week 15 here that we're all on these games.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that we would all be trying to find different angles and different ways to play these, but just hasn't been working out that way.
And the craziest thing is I actually came up with 8 picks and narrowed down 3 picks and still sharing similarities with you guys.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Detroit and Tennessee. We've got another Detroit matchup here where the question is whether Matt Stafford will or will not play. He suffered a rib injury late in the Green Bay game last week and was taken out, and he is currently questionable, which we've had that debate before what that means. I feel like that's kind of 50-50. Nevertheless, Tennessee at home, 11.5-point favorites against Detroit. That number is not on a lot of boards here. I see it at the Westgate. I see it at the stations. I see it at DraftKings, but it's off the board at pretty much a lot of other places here in Vegas and other sports books across the country. Total in this one, 51.5. Derrick Henry is on a quest to reach 2,000 yards, and he gets the 4th worst rushing defense in the NFL, so I'd consider that a juicy matchup for Derrick Henry there. The question really is with an 11.5-point spread, the expectation is that Tennessee, no matter who starts, is probably going to coast in this game. And Vrabel has been very firm saying that if the team gets a comfortable lead, Derrick Henry is not going to be on that field.
Which makes a lot of sense. And for those of us who are Henry owners in fantasy, that does worry me a little bit that he's not going to be able to play the complete game. But I still think that this is too juicy a matchup to bench him in that situation.
Well, that's the crazy thing. He could have 140 and 2 touchdowns before he gets benched.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I have no qualms about leaving him in there.
No, he's a green light.
Yeah, so I'll total disclosure here. I actually didn't pay too much attention to this game just because it was off the board. It's so many books that even if the Westgate kept it on, I was worried that it might actually come off by the time we recorded when I was doing these picks. So I didn't pay too much attention to it. I will say that it's, sort of one of those, like, not even a who cares game because there are interesting pieces for both of these teams. But I certainly think that just watching Derrick Henry is probably the only reason to watch this game, unless you're actually like a fan of one of these teams. But I don't know how people are fans of the Lions at this point.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
Token's still here.
no, that's true. I don't know. I don't know enough about either of these teams to say that I would feel comfortable about this. We do have a pick from one of our absent tokens today on this game. I don't know, not for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. All right, let's move forward. Also, regarding Stafford, it's crazy to think. Now, I understand it's the Lions, and Stafford, as average as he is, means a lot to that team. But for that to come off the board like that is, I know it did it last week, but it's just a little crazy to me that you're almost saying that he means he's worth 11 points, which is we've kind of said that maybe not even Pat Mahomes is worth that, but maybe that Detroit team's so bad and he makes them look that much less bad. I don't know. We'll see. So, all right, let's move forward to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off their Minnesota win last week against the Atlanta Falcons, who unfortunately lost late again, blowing issues, ironically, to the Chargers last week on a last-second field goal. Tampa Bay and Atlanta, the line in this one, that Tampa Bay is a 6-point road favorite in the new Georgia Dome against the Falcons. The total in this one's 48.5. Talked about this last week. It didn't really occur, but I think the Buccaneers kind of got a gift courtesy of Dan Bailey last week with 3 comically bad field goals and a missed extra point. But the run game didn't surface again for Tampa Bay that well. And this week, Ronald Jones is on the COVID list. He's doubtful right now, which we know, again, probably means he's not going to play. So we're going to get a healthy dose of Leonard Fournette against a pretty average rush defense for the Atlanta Falcons. Tampa Bay currently in the 6th seed in the NFC playoffs. So obviously staying in the playoff hunt requires a win against the Atlanta Falcons. But divisional games, anything goes. Raheem Morris, the former Bucs coach, might have a little added motivation there, not only to beat his old team, but he's 4-4 as the interim. So if he's trying to make a case for a job, he needs to beat a Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay team. Fun fact here, Spike, Tom Brady has now passed for 30 touchdowns on the year in his first year in Tampa. The current record, do you know what the current record for touchdown passes is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a single season?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Jameis Winston set it last year at 33.
He did. So Brady has a chance to break a 1-year-old Tampa Bay Buccaneer passing touchdown record.
Hey, good for him.
Also, speaking of breaking things, with a win, they will get, again, closer to that playoff, solidification. Is that a word? I don't even know if it's a word.
Oof.
Solidifying a playoff spot. We'll go with that. And they would aim to end the second longest playoff drought in the NFL at 13 years. For me, Spike, the key matchup here is the Bucs defensive line, which has 40 sacks, good for 6th in the NFL, against the Falcons offensive line, which is 3rd to last in the NFL with 36 sacks allowed.
Yeah, I think that's obviously a huge matchup because Matt Ryan has a history of turning the ball over, especially late in games. We saw that, I forget if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where he threw 3 picks in the second half. That's certainly not the way that you win a lot of games in this league, even though he is 4-4 over the last 8, which is better than how they started, I guess.
It is, yes.
This to me, I think you hit the nail on the head halfway when you were talking about the run game of Tampa Bay and how it was kind of non-existent. But I think that gets made up for the fact that Tampa Bay has all but abandoned the deep throw. And I think they're going dink and dunk, which is essentially a running game when you're just throwing the ball, 3 to 5 yards past the offensive line and letting the receivers do the rest. And when you see that kind of an offense, which I think we're going to see a lot more of, especially moving into the playoffs, I think that is how Tampa Bay is going to be successful. Tom Brady has shown over the last few years, and especially this year, that he doesn't have the arm for the long ball anymore. So I think him being able to kind of throw it, just short behind the line, or, just over the line, and getting those yards in little chunks like that is going to make this team pretty difficult to stop because it's still Tom Brady, and you're still not going to want to leave Gronkowski open 25 yards downfield because God knows what that fucking monster can do. And I think the last part of this that is crucial is that at some point Brady and Arians have to trust each other, which I just haven't seen yet. The two of them just seem to be at odds. It's how they want the team to run. And I think Brady isn't used to having that kind of voice of dissension that actually outranks him. He was on such good terms with Belichick and McDaniels, or at least we think they were, that we didn't see this kind of discord through the team that we're seeing with Brady in Tampa Bay right now. So definitely an interesting game. One I do have a pick on, and I am looking forward to kind of seeing how this one shakes out, because I think the Buccaneers and Brady, if they play this game right, not only win here, but I think they make a lot of noise in the NFC playoffs.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about kind of Arians and Brady being at odds. I wonder if the situation goes like this. Arians, I want you to air the ball down the field. I kind of have an offense built for, 20-yard, 30-yard throws and things like that. And Jameis was able to do it last year. And Tom Brady, coach, I can't.
Yeah, well, it's the report that I heard, and this is from Boston Sports Talk Radio, so God knows how true it is because they like to make shit up all the time. But it sounds like they're letting Brady call the plays at the line. And if that's the case and Brady has the choice to go long or go short, then it's going to be all on his arm and his mind. And I think he's the one that's going to make that decision as opposed to Arians. I think Arian finally trusts him now.
Well, then if that is the case, then if the Bucks don't live up to expectations, then Brady's going to have nobody to blame but himself at that point.
That is correct.
So, all right, moving on. Speaking of New England, moving on to New England and Miami. This is a matchup that's always fun, kind of mostly won by Miami, and they are now the favorite. I can't remember the last time I said that. New England, the dog in Miami, but maybe we see a little fun here. Miami, a 1.5-point dog at the Westgate, total 41.5 in this one. Again, like I said, you got Tua Tagovailoa against a team that a lot of people have said given up. I don't think Bill Belichick will let the guys who are still playing on this team give up, although, like I said, the offense is incredibly predictable and so Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, let's look at it. 2 weeks, 1 week, 45 points against the Chargers, the next week, 3 points against the Rams. Now, obviously, vastly different defenses. Unfortunately, Miami's defense probably mirrors closer to the Rams than it does the Chargers, which is unfortunately bad news for Cam Newton and Josh McDaniels and the rest of them. For the love of God, I would love a jump pass, a tight end, anything but a fucking draw play from Cam Newton, 4 yards or less inside. But I don't think I'm going to get it, Spike. The Dolphins, with a win here, I believe solidify a playoff spot. At least they could do no worse than 7th, and they would get in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. However, good news for the Patriots. Gesicki and Parker have not practiced all week. Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki are the 2 big weapons for Tua Tagovailoa, and they are currently questionable. And Gesicki, I guess, is more lean towards not playing this week after hurting himself last week against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and on top of that, on the defensive side, Miami, Landon Roberts, Kyle Van Noy, Bobby McCain all did not practice on Wednesday, so it'll be curious. I'm assuming they're going to play if we haven't heard otherwise, but if they're hurt, if they're banged up, if they're not playing at 100%, that's only good news for New England. New England's offense this year has been at times baffling, more often than not frustrating, and that goddamn quarterback draw that they run every single time they're within a couple of yards of the end zone is not only predictable, but it's not working anymore. Like, we're just not seeing that play do what it's supposed to do anymore, so they need to get away from it. Unfortunately, I don't think Josh McDaniels has the stomach to be able to admit that he's wrong and move away from a play like that. I think the one thing that is curious here is Belichick's overall record against rookie quarterbacks, which I believe is sitting at 21-5 through his coaching careers. So Belichick being able to talk to his buddy Nick Saban and saying, hey, how do I stop this Tua Tagovailoa guy? I think that is going to give Belichick a great way to game plan for this one. And for all I know, Flores is going to come out and start Fitzmagic, which is just going to completely screw things up, which would be hysterical, but also bad for me, as I have actual money on New England money line in this game.
I was just going to say that, actually. I don't have a play on the side in this game. I do have a play on the total, as I think we all have got some that kind of action on this game.
We do.
But I would have said New England money line might be a decent little play here.
Yeah, I think, it's just, again, Belichick's record against rookie quarterbacks. They're not used to seeing a Belichickian defense, and he is always going to cook something new up that's going to screw them up. Get them to see ghosts or whatever, see demons, whatever that quote was from that famous primetime game.
It was Sam Darnold, yeah.
Sam Darnold, and I think this is the potential for one of those kinds of games. Now, whether or not New England can score enough to beat Miami, I don't know, but I think Tua does not have a good game in this one.
Let me ask you this just very briefly. Do you see Matt Patricia back next year?
To New England?
No, to Detroit. Yes, New England.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he goes to Miami to work with Flores, because the two of them work together in New England.
Well, you could have. Okay. Where do you see? Do you see him showing up in one of these? Maybe Tennessee? Any of these coaching tree things?
Yeah, certainly not New England, because I think right now the job of DC is Steve Belichick's to lose.
I'm not saying DC. He might not even get a DC job, but.
Yeah, well, I think that would be tough for him to go from DC to head coach to what, like linebackers coach? Well,
Freddie Kitchens went from OC to head coach to tight ends coach. We're going to talk about him later in the show. So
that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I would see him going not to New England. I think the field is the better play. Well, obviously, that would be significantly minus money if anybody's actually taking action on that, but. I think that's the better play.
I'd take what kind of odds would you give me as a dog if I took Patricia for, I don't know, what would you give me there?
3.5 to 1.
That's gross, but I'll take it for $5.
All right, you got it.
All right. Moving along to Chicago and Minnesota. Both teams sitting currently at 6 and 7. Minnesota is a 3-point favorite at home. And the total in this one is 46.5. Last time they played, Minnesota was able to win 19-13 on a game which we saw Nick Foles go down and has not played since. We've gotten the Hall of Famer Trubisky since that Week 10 matchup on Monday Night Football. These games are always close, divisional game. Both teams are in need of a win, again, for the playoff hopes to stay alive. We get that. So the motivation factor's there. I don't really know which way to lean in this one. I've gone back and forth in it. I think the better team's obviously the home team in Minnesota. I think they probably should have at least been competitive, if not beaten Tampa Bay last week. If I'm the Vikings, they didn't do anything about Dan Bailey, so I can't really feel good if I'm in a close game or if I'm relying on, if I'm down in the red zone, maybe I'm going for it a little more this week against Chicago instead of having to take 40, 45-yard field goals. So Minnesota and Chicago in this one, Spike, division game with two okay teams, I guess you could say.
Yeah, they're okay. They're in, the Trubisky story is interesting. The Dalvin Cook stat watch is interesting. But obviously these are two teams that are, struggling to really find their identities at this point. So I don't know. This game, to be frank, doesn't really interest me all that much. I will say, given what Trubisky has done each of his last 3 games, I think it's 240 yards in each of his last 3 at least. And then 3 touchdowns in the last game that he started. I don't know. The line seems strange to me because as much of a better team as Minnesota is, I kind of feel like there would be a lot more money coming in on Chicago than what we're seeing. Because I think I just had it. Why is covers not working for me? Yeah, the money's right now evenly split 50-50. And I think
that makes sense. The spread's right there at -3 for a home team, so it kind of makes a lot of sense there.
It does, but I don't know. Given a Minnesota loss last week and a good Trubisky performance last week, I kind of figured that Chicago I didn't expect it to be 3, especially didn't expect it to open at 6. I figured it would be more, like 2, 1.5, somewhere in there.
Well, I think just despite the fact that I said they're both okay teams, if you look in the spectrum of okay, I think Minnesota is more toward the top of the okay, and Chicago is more leaning closer to the bad team. Despite what Trubisky did and has done since returning to the lineup, I don't know. Like you said, I just think Minnesota's kind of firing. Dalvin Cook, if he can ball control here with this, especially gashing Chicago's defense, not relying on Kirk Cousins, and again the foot of Dan Bailey. I think Dan Bailey, if he gets his head right, I think this is a win for Minnesota here. So, all right, Seattle and the football team. Seahawks, for the third time, Spike, in the last 4 weeks, the Seahawks will face the NFC East division leader at the time. It's kind of a weird thing to face one division, and at the different times you face these teams, they were leading said division. I thought that was an interesting little fun fact, but the Seahawks at 9-4 are 6.5-point favorites on the road against Washington, who unlikely will have Alex Smith this week, which means Dwayne Haskins gets the start. Seattle needs this win. They're 9-4, like I said, to keep pace with the LA Rams, who we'll talk about later, face the New York Jets, which unfortunately they have not yet been able to beat anyone this year. So that bodes well for the Rams. In this spot, I don't love the thought of Dwayne Haskins starting a game against Russell Wilson and trying to keep pace with him. But Washington does have a pretty good defense. Last week, they, for the first time since 1992, won a game without scoring an offensive touchdown. The defense had 2 touchdowns against San Francisco last week in Arizona. But I feel like Seattle's kind of getting their mojo back after that Giants lost. And the Jets couldn't come at a better time for Seattle last week, 40-3, that drubbing. But I don't know. This one seems ripe, but it is a West Coast team going east to play a morning game, and those don't always work out well for the West Coast teams.
No, especially with the way Russell Wilson's kind of lost a few games that he shouldn't have this year. And I don't know that – actually, I got to look up his stats while we're talking about him.
Well, he does have a career-high 36 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, but, I mean, he lost to
the Giants.
The Giants, and that's not acceptable. Yeah, interception. Why can't I find his interceptions? Oh, my God.
I think he's got like 11 or 12 this year.
36 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So a 3-to-1 ratio, that's actually better than what I expected it to be. Sitting on 40 sacks, though, which, puts him ahead of Deshaun Watson. Yeah, so that's a problem. And that's something that I still haven't figured out, how he is able to still put up stats like that when he just continuously gets sacked, and Seattle doesn't seem to be doing much to help their offensive line. I don't know. This is an interesting one to me because Haskins is supposed to be what Russell Wilson is, but I just, Haskins, if he keeps losing his job to Alex Smith, who can't stay on the field for more than 5 games in a row, I don't know that. I don't know if that's a Haskins problem or a Washington problem. This is one I completely stayed away from. As soon as I saw the matchup, I didn't even bother looking at the line. I just said, thank you, next. But you're right. Those West Coast teams going east to play those morning games do not turn out well for the West Coast teams, especially one that's favored by essentially a touchdown. So, Yeah, strange one for sure.
Yeah, not only that, now – through that stretch where Russell was throwing picks and they were having issues, a lot of the running back situation, there was a lot of injuries. Carson went down, then Hyde went down, and Penny has suffered an ACL injury last year. He's probably going to play this week. So with Carson healthy, Hyde healthy, and Rashad Penny, maybe that takes some of the burden off of Russell Wilson to be able to coast to a victory this week.
Yeah, potentially.
All right, Jacksonville and Baltimore. This, to me, is a kind of a thank you next game, other than the fact that Baltimore needs to win, obviously, to keep pace in the playoff. But I'll talk about it here for just a little bit. Obviously, Baltimore, we talked about Cleveland. That was one of the craziest Monday night games I've seen in a while. They're saying Lamar Jackson returned from cramps. I think he had to poop, but that's just my opinion. because the way he ran to the locker room did not look like cramps. It looked like he had to take the Browns to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Gross.
Again, Baltimore currently the 8th seed in the AFC. I didn't think I would say that after them posting a 14-2 record last year, but I think this has been a tougher year for them. I would say, but luckily for them, they finished the season with Jacksonville, the Giants, and Cincinnati. So there's a strong possibility they could be 11-5, and that would probably be okay in this spot. Baltimore is a 12.5-point home favorite against Jacksonville, a 1-12 Jacksonville team that I've got to imagine is checked out. They're putting Gardner Minshew back in at this point for the rest of the season. Doug Marrone's not. I mean, his press conferences aren't even inspiring anymore, which I can understand. Total in this one is 48. One thing I do want to watch for here, if you are in a fantasy playoff and you have one of Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, or maybe even Mark Ingram, you might want to just get them all in. The Ravens are first in the league at 174 yards rushing per game. And the Jags are 30th in the league, giving up almost 150 yards per game. So that's the key matchup, I would say, in this week. And I also want to ask you a question, Spike.
All right.
James Robinson, Rookie of the Year?
I
mean, it's unfortunate the team he's on, but those stats, I mean, they're pretty good. I'm trying to look him up here real quick. I know he has over 1,000 yards rushing. I think he's 3rd in the league in rushing. 1035.
And that's kind of the problem is I don't think that whoever votes for that or whoever figures that out is going to be able to look past the fact that Jacksonville is god awful this year. So, ugh.
I mean, the only other option I could see that's going up against is Justin Jefferson, who also is a 1,000-yard receiver for the Vikings this year. But there's not a ton of rookies really going crazy this year. I mean, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert maybe, but Justin Herbert's on a losing team. Joe Burrow's out for the year. It's maybe a spot where we get a James Robinson or a Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I
hope it's not Tua, because despite the fact that the team is successful, he's just okay.
Well, not only that, but he wasn't the starter coming out of camp, so we have a handful of games where
neither was Justin Herbert either.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
he still might not even be starting if they didn't blow Tyrod Taylor's lung out to smithereens or whatever they did. Puncture is what I was looking for, not blow.
There you go. I think. Well, anyway.
Move on.
I don't know. That Rookie of the Year thing's always tricky for me because it's you always think it's going to go to a guy that that there's always a standout guy that you can say this is the one.
It's usually a quarterback.
Yeah, it's usually a quarterback. Every once in a while, maybe you see it go to a defensive guy, but they really have to impress. They really have to do something special. And I don't.
Well, the Rookie of the Year, they have an offensive and defensive one.
Oh yeah. You're right. So I don't know. I mean, certainly not going to an offensive lineman. So I would assume give it to a running back this year because we have somebody that's gone over 1,000 yards. A lot of guys can't do that no matter how many years they've been in the league. It's impressive enough. I think you have to ignore the record and give it to him.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that because he's an undrafted rookie and he's on a terrible team who's 1-12, they're probably going to end up giving it to Herbert. But I think Justin Jefferson may have a conversation, especially if the last 3 games he ends up pushing over 1,500 yards. And speaking of defensive rookie of the years, I think Chase Young is probably the guy to get that one, in my opinion, as far as the defensive rookie of the year. The guy's a beast. 15 weeks or 14 weeks now, the guy's just been unbelievable. But yeah, let's move forward from this Baltimore-Jacksonville game. I can't imagine, despite the fact that it's 12 points, even if Jacksonville covers that spread, I can't imagine this will be a competitive game.
No, not at all.
So, all right, the last game we have here on the morning slate is San Francisco and Dallas, which preseason probably looked like a great matchup. It actually was on Sunday Night Football. It was going to be, but it got flexed, ironically, in favor of Cleveland and the Giants. I mean, come on. If you had to talk to a person who was only a football fan in the 90s, like he's not a football fan now, and you told him, hey, the Dallas-San Francisco game is irrelevant, and they made room for the Cleveland-New York Giant football game. I mean, that guy'd be rolling over in his – well, he's not dead, but that guy would be like blowing a gasket there.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because this is not what anybody expected this year or, like you said, any other year because, oof, this 2020, man.
Yeah, and San Francisco is a 3-point favorite at Dallas, total in this one 45. McCarthy can now coach with a little sigh of relief. He got the vote of confidence from the Joneses last week. And technically, both these teams are still in the playoff. Dallas can actually still win the division, which is crazy. But they will both need Christmas miracles to pull those out. Dallas and San Francisco both in fourth place in their respective conferences. Oh, yeah, by the way, Dallas is 0-3 versus the NFC West this year, and I think they're getting outscored 130 to like 40.
Well, that kind of screws me because I do have Dallas plus 2.5 this week, not to give away too many of my picks, but that is one that I have. I didn't realize that about Dallas against the NFC West.
Well, I mean, I get your thought process because the NFC West is terrible in your mind.
It is. It especially is. Especially, I mean, let's face it, San Francisco, like, I didn't think they were going to be great. Like, I never trust teams that lose in the Super Bowl to go out.
I agree with you. It's unfair, though, because they're super hurt.
Yeah, I mean, with the injuries that they've had, it's one of those problems that it's just like when you have that many injuries, how do you overcome it? So
you don't. Depth eventually just wears too thin. And they lost another guy, Deebo Samuel's out for the year. I mean, so they're just snake bitten. They're different than the Falcons, like Super Bowl hangover, and obviously the Patriots didn't have Super Bowl hangover. They came back and won. But, yeah, this one's just tough because they just cannot stay healthy. I mean, I'm curious to see what they do next year. Obviously, they're going to keep back all those skill position players, but I'm curious to see what they do with Garoppolo. Small chance even Garoppolo may end up back in New England. I think he can be had for a couple of day 2 picks, so you might want to keep your eye on that one. Would you take Garoppolo back?
Yeah, but I'd want to have a good backup for not if, but when Garoppolo gets hurt again, because he's made of glass at this point.
Fair enough.
But when he's on the field, I mean, he's obviously looked, at least competitive. I mean, certainly more competitive than like a Stidham.
Mm-hmm.
And
a Newton.
Yeah. I'd take him back, especially. This has been driving me insane, but my father, every time my dad talks about the Patriots, he has to throw in the fact that Belichick is one of the worst general managers in the league, absolutely hates what he does in the draft, absolutely hates the players that he picks. They flash it up on the Sunday night game where they talked about the wide receivers that New England had taken in the draft over the last 10 years or so. The only 2 that are still even in the league are incredibly underperforming on New England this year, especially because, let's face it, Cam Newton doesn't throw to wide receivers. He doesn't really throw the ball at all.
I would say the only 2 are still in the league are what? Their first-round pick last year and Julian Edelman? Or I don't know how old Julian Edelman's been in the league, but
yeah, no, it's N'Keal Harry and not Malcolm Mitchell. Who the hell is the other one that I'm thinking of? Christ, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I look at this San Francisco team as being something that should be a lot better than it is. Even with the injuries they have, like, you would think they'd be able to cobble something else together, and they're just not, which, you hit it right on the head when you said that the depth is going to catch up with them. I don't know. I like Dallas in this spot simply because of all the injuries, even with what was the Red Rocket there throwing for Dallas. I don't know. Maybe he's even hurt at this point because God knows.
You made a pick. You don't even know who the quarterback is.
Whatever. I don't give a shit anymore. I think there's enough of a game plan, enough talent on this Dallas team to be able to overcome that, or at least keep the game so close that spread doesn't become a factor for them. And I think they hang on for this one.
All right, let's move to the late slate, the afternoon slate. Start with Philadelphia and Arizona. Arizona, a 6.5-point favorite against the Jalen Hurts-led Philadelphia Eagles. Total in this one, 49. This is a matchup between Oklahoma University's last two starting quarterbacks prior to this season, as Jalen Hurts was the Oklahoma quarterback last year, and 2 years ago, Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winner from Oklahoma. This is an interesting matchup, in my opinion, because I think a lot of people are falling in love with Jalen Hurts, wanting to crown him, obviously any chance they can to shit on one quarterback and praise another one. I'm not so sure I feel confident him going across the country and having to play another good defense 2 weeks in a row. I'm not 100% sure I feel about that. But also, at the same token, this is a must-win for Arizona. They are the current number 7 seed in the NFC, so I don't think that Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles spike are just going to get a team going through the motions.
Oh, no. I think this is an Arizona team that's actually motivated. So I think this is a very tough one for Philadelphia. Hurts did look good. I think I saw he's the first quarterback. What's the line here? The first quarterback in the past 70 years to throw for 150 yards with a passing touchdown and rush for 100 yards in his first career start. I think the problem here is that Arizona's secondary is too good to give up that many yards passing through the air. So it's all going to come down to Hurts not making mistakes, reading the defense, and knowing when to pull it down and run. And if he can't do that, it's going to be a long day for Philadelphia and a rookie quarterback. But I think the story here has to be Kyler Murray, because every time I watch highlights, every time I try to watch these games, I expect to see much bigger things out of Kyler Murray than what I'm seeing. And he's good. They're fine. I'm just not seeing the kind of explosive offensive or dynamic offense that you would think you would get out of somebody like a Kyler Murray. Maybe he's too young. Maybe they haven't built the offense enough yet. I'm waiting for that to come up. I still think it's potentially there in a couple of years. I'm just not. I don't know why we haven't seen enough of it yet.
Well, I think they've kind of tapered it down a little bit. I mean, he's played, the last 3 weeks, he's played 2 really good defenses in the Patriots and the Rams. And then obviously he had the Giants last week, which they won that game pretty easily. He didn't have to do too much. The real big thing, I think, what's going on, and maybe this is leading to this formulation of your opinion, is their running game is actually really good with Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds, and Kyler Murray. So the explosive, crazy plays, which is actually what's led some people to believe that they're wasting DeAndre Hopkins, which I think is an unfair statement to make because of the fact the running game has been so good this year. So maybe, in my opinion, just to you, that might be creating some of the lack of flash that I guess you're looking for from Kyler Murray. But, if he has to bring it out, maybe once he's fully healthy, you might start seeing that again.
Yeah, I hope so. I've got high hopes for this kid, so let's see what he can do.
High hopes. Is that a short joke? Not because you're short, because he's short. I think you're both short. Are you shorter than him?
Oh, I'm sure I am. How tall is he?
I think he's 5'9".
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Put you in my pocket. I'll put you in my pocket. All right, Kansas City, New Orleans, game of the week. Kansas City, a 3-point favorite at the Westgate. Total in this one is 52. Game in the Superdome. We're going to get, I believe, 3,500 fans for this one, so we might have a modicum of a playoff atmosphere. I don't know how much noise that will make. Kansas City, we talked about this midweek, myself and Tony Johnson and a couple of the 12-ounce sports contributors. Kansas City, when they want to, they can fucking dust the shit off the playbook and explode for 30, 35, 40 points. But it seems lately they're having trouble. I know this is only from a betting. They're having trouble covering spreads late. 2 out of the last 3 weeks they have been backdoored, which always creates a scary spot in this one, especially Kansas City and that magical number. But there's another thing. We probably getting Drew Brees back in this one. Drew Brees is projected to start after all that long injury, and it's kept him out a month. And the Taysom Hill experiment, which, I mean, for all intents and purposes, wasn't too bad. Went 3-1. But the unfortunate news for Drew Brees is that he is not going to have Michael Thomas in this one. Michael Thomas is out. But the Chiefs, who have won five consecutive AFC West titles, are all but focused on getting that number one seed, especially since only one team gets the bye in each of the conferences this year. So the Chiefs, obviously now, that's the sights they have set on. And honestly, I wanted to point this out. Travis Kelce, this is an interesting stat here. Travis Kelce, if he continues, he currently leads the NFL in receiving. If he continues, he will be the first tight end. And we've had great tight ends in the day: Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski, etc. He'd be the first tight end to lead the league in receiving for a total year. So I thought that was a pretty interesting stat. And at this point, he also needs only 127 yards to break the tight end single season record as well. So I guess if you're looking for accolades when it comes to the Chiefs or looking for things to play for, Travis Kelce looks like he's got some contract bonuses. I would assume those would trigger some incentive clauses if somehow he led the league in receiving and also broke the single season tight end record as well. Also, the Saints, if they do win or if Tampa Bay does lose, they can clinch the NFC South in this game as well.
So I didn't realize that about the Saints being able to claim the division after this game. That's
if they win or Tampa Bay loses, yeah. Which both things are looking a little unlikely.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it'll be interesting to see in this game if Drew Brees does start, and let's say he starts, 7 for 18 with a pick. Do they go back to Hill? That's really what I'm curious to see. Not that I think Kansas City's defense is so complex and so overwhelming that Drew Brees is not going to be able to figure them out. But if they're not able to move the ball, if they're not able to keep this game close early, you have to wonder what kind of a leash is going to be on Brees. As sick as it is to say, and not that I'm saying that there's a quarterback controversy, but if they don't think that he's ready to come back, if they don't think that he can lead this team to a victory, you wonder if a change is going to be made midstream. So,
well, I think if he starts 7 of 18 and the Saints are down 31-0, then yes, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely they would.
Other than that, I think Drew Brees plays the whole game.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Like I don't know that anybody would disagree with you there.
I mean, I think that does nothing for the confidence of the team or Drew Brees. I think at this point he needs the 3 weeks to get ready. He's the playoff starter. I mean, 100% he's the playoff starter.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then that makes you wonder if he is the playoff starter, why bring him back now? Why not bring him back in week 16 or week 17 unless they are just trying to wrap up that division title?
Well, you got a point there because why would you do that against Kansas City? Just let Kansas City have this win, and because it means nothing to you. You're not in the same conference. And At this point, you are one game behind Green Bay because – actually, they're tied with Green Bay, but because they lost to Green Bay, they're technically one game, quote unquote, behind Green Bay for the number one seed. So maybe they think they can go in and win this game because it is at home. And if Green Bay somehow Green Bay somehow loses to Carolina, then maybe you're back in the number one seed. I don't know. You got to really ask Sean Payton in that spot because you're right. I think maybe bringing him back even in week 16, maybe even week 17, because Drew Brees is a veteran. I don't know how many weeks he needs to get himself prepared for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to imagine that he's so well versed in the playbook and the way that the Saints run their offense and everything else that it shouldn't take him that long to get reacclimated to the NFL and the speed of the game. I don't know. I think starting him here is a mistake, especially if you're not sure that he's 100%. But maybe you have to test it out and see how it goes. Actually,
I think that's totally fair.
I think the really interesting point here is exactly how well New Orleans' front seven defense can contain Mahomes. Not that Mahomes is, he can throw it and make it look effortless and throw it 50 yards down the field. He does like to move around, though, and when he does, you have to wonder if New Orleans is going to be able to either get to him, put the pressure on him, get his hands in his face, and kind of mix things up for him a little bit and make him throw when he doesn't necessarily want to. And I think that's the way, much like Tom Brady, that's the way that you get Patrick Mahomes to make mistakes. That's how you get him to misread defenses and throw interceptions. And if they can do that, then I think New Orleans definitely has a chance to keep this one not just close, but possibly even win it outright. Again, assuming that Breeze is healthy enough to be able to put up enough points on when New Orleans' offense is on the field.
Yeah, and also, I mean, obviously, like I said before, previously in the podcast, we air on Zingo on Saturday nights. The Green Bay game is over at this point. So if Green Bay were to lose to Carolina, that may even fuel more motivation for the New Orleans to actually play ball here today on Sunday. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
All right, the last of the 4 o'clock Eastern games is the New York Jets taking on the LA Rams. Biggest spread of the week. LA Rams, a 17-point favorite, total in this one, 43.5. So against the Seattle Seahawks, they were 16-point underdogs. They stay on the West Coast, and now they're 17-point underdogs. The Jets are just yikes. But Sean McVay said they basically cannot overlook the Jets in preparation for that big matchup against Seattle next week. That's a big game, but they do not, especially since it looks like Seattle probably will beat the football team as well, most likely. But, it would hate – what would that do for the confidence of LA if overlooking the New York Jets in a preparation for Seattle and then losing to the Jets, especially at home where they're 5-1 in their new stadium and they've looked dominant, especially on defense, and Jared Goff's been fine. But, I just don't see any situation. Covering 17 is a hard thing to do, but I don't see any situation where they, even if they do overlook the Jets, they could probably still beat them.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then that begs the question, not just in this game, but in other games where you think, there is absolutely no chance that this team, even if they are unprepared, even if they get hurt, there is no way that this team loses to the Jets. Is it still worth throwing money on a Jets money line, which right now is going off at 11-1?
Yes, $10.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know what the money line for the Raiders Jets was, but that was probably a good bet too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, any of these games would be, especially when they're double-digit dogs. Not that they have looked great, except in that Raiders game. That the Jets have looked terrible this year. But, yeah, that 17 number is just enormous. And, unless this game ends up like the last time these two teams met where the final score was 9-6 in favor of the Rams, I don't know how you feel comfortable betting on the Jets at all in this game.
Well, there is some motivation for New York. I will give you this. I don't know if they know it, but the Jets could become the first team in NFL betting history to be 15 or more point underdogs 3 or more times and not cover a single one of them.
Oh.
Kansas City, Seattle last week, and LA this week.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, I guess there's some motivation there for New York.
Wow.
That's a tough stat to swallow. So hopefully we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think LA could probably spend 75% of the week preparing for Seattle and still probably have no problem in this game. But That's why they play the games. We'll see. Cleveland and the Giants. This is the marquee matchup that Dallas and San Francisco was flexed for. That's still funny to watch to see that. But I mean, I'm telling you, if you had a guy who went into a coma in like 1996 and woke up and his first football game was going to be Dallas and San Francisco, and they're like, nope, that's not important. Cleveland and the New York Giants is way more important at this point because it's crazy. Cleveland and the Giants are both technically competing for division titles. They can both theoretically win it. Obviously, the Giants have a better shot than Cleveland does, but Cleveland on the road, 6-point favorite. Total in this one, 44. Fun fact here, Spike. Freddie Kitchens, we talked about him earlier in the podcast, the former head coach of the Cleveland Browns as late as last year, is now calling plays for the New York Giants. Jason Garrett got COVID, the offensive coordinator for the Giants, and that means Freddie Kitchens, the tight ends coach, will now be calling plays against his former team. So I think for me, I'm probably going to do something else during Sunday Night Football, but that's kind of an interesting storyline if you're looking for something because I'm pretty sure Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth are going to beat that down as much as they can, especially if the Giants are beating the Browns or beat the Browns or beating the Browns at any point in this game. But the question I really had, actually, to be honest with you in this one is I wonder, Joe Judge didn't rule out going back to Colt McCoy. Do you think he might do that this week?
I mean, potentially. I don't think whatever they do is going to be enough to be able to beat this Cleveland team. But I mean, any coach in this league is going to go with the quarterback that they feel gives them the best chance to win. That's always been the line. That's always been the stance that they take. So why wouldn't you say, if I think Colt McCoy gives us a better chance to win the game, Colt McCoy is our starter?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would get that. I would understand that. I think, the Giants fans out there would have to understand that as well. So I think the one thing for me that stood out this year especially is I never gave Baker Mayfield much of a chance. I thought he made too many mistakes with the ball. He was throwing too many interceptions, including over 20 last year. I think it was 21, 22, whatever it was. But he only has 8 this year. And I think that is the key, is that Mayfield is not making mistakes anymore. He's not rushing his passes. He's not, misreading defenses. He's actually playing good football. And I think that in and of itself is a huge factor as to why Cleveland is playing so much better. And that is the reason that I think Cleveland rolls. But I think it's also the reason why this game gets moved to Sunday night is because they finally have the Baker Mayfield that they thought they were going to get when they drafted him. And that's a quarterback that keeps them in each game, that keeps them competitive, and like you said, keeps them fighting for the division.
All right, in the Monday night football game, which is another snoozer in my opinion, probably watching something else or doing something else on Monday night in that spot. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Pittsburgh a 13-point favorite at the Westgate. Total in this one 40. Really no storylines. Pittsburgh's clinched a playoff berth, but not yet the number 1 seed. Obviously, they lost that last week. And obviously, they have not yet clinched the AFC North unless Cleveland loses to that aforementioned New York Giants in that Sunday night football game. If Cleveland does lose, then Pittsburgh will be the AFC North champion, and you can enact praise on Spike for calling Pittsburgh as the AFC North champion preseason. So I'm sure he'll bring that up next week if Cleveland does lose and Pittsburgh is crowned AFC North champion. I'm sure you will do that, correct?
Oh, of course I will. The only I will to a certain extent, but I didn't actually put money on it, so I probably should have done that so I could have collected something at the end of this.
Attaboy. To me, honestly, I think the two things in this one is timing, or for Pittsburgh, is working on timing and staying healthy. They shouldn't have any issues with Cincinnati. The only way this game does interest me at all is if Cincinnati finds a way to keep this close. Now, I'm not saying Pittsburgh, I would be trusting Pittsburgh to cover 13 points on the road against a division rival. No, not at all, especially the way they've played the last 3 games. But I just really don't have any fan interest or too much betting interest in this one.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, it doesn't seem like a game that I think too many people are going to watch. This is the danger of putting the Monday night schedule out, at the beginning of the season and not being able to flex any of these games. This is just not one that's going to be worth watching, except to see how badly Cincinnati gets beat in this one.
Okay, so you think Pittsburgh should have no problem covering 2 touchdowns then?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, but
I mean, they've had problems scoring 20 points the last 3 games, so we'll see.
Which is why I didn't actually put any kind of bet on this one or any kind of pick on it.
Well, if you decided not to bet it, then you're right. Pittsburgh probably should cover 13 because every time you don't bet something for Pittsburgh, they do it anyway. So
that's true.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the Week 15 slate here, previewing all the games that were Sunday and Monday. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our picks. And since you have the picks for the 2 Tonys and you're all a combination of first through third, I'll just sit back and let you fire them off.
All right. So let's start with first place Token Tony. He has Detroit and Tennessee over 51.5. He's got the Jets and the Rams over 43.5. He's got the aforementioned Browns and the Giants at over 44.5.
Calling him total token.
Yeah, and now the 2 games that all of us are on are New England and Miami, and in those he is taking Miami minus the 1.5, Philadelphia plus the 6.5. For my picks, I have Tampa Bay minus the 6.5 against Atlanta. I have Dallas plus the 2.5 against San Francisco, which I talked about earlier. And I took the total in Houston and Indy going over 50.5. Hopefully fucking Watson doesn't let me down in this one, but God knows he might. In our 2 consensus games, I have New England plus 1.5. I actually think they win that one outright. And in Philadelphia and Arizona, I am taking under 48.5. Tony Johnson likes the Ravens so much, he took them minus 12.5.
Well, that's unorthodox for him.
Yeah, that is. I thought that was a strange pick, but I wasn't going to say anything about it to him when he put it in because I didn't want him to change it. He's got the Browns minus the 6.5. He is. What am I missing here? He is also on Houston and Indy over the total of 50.5. And then in New England, he agrees with me that the Patriots plus the 1.5. And then he has the Cardinals minus the 6.5 against the Eagles.
Yeah, we're all in a little similar land here. So, all right, bringing up the rear, hoping for a 5-0 week, which unfortunately also boosts Tony Johnson, as some of our picks are similar here. I will start with the consensus games. I am also on Arizona minus 6.5, and in the Miami New England game, I am actually on the over 41.5 in that one. As far as Houston and Indianapolis go, you two are on the over. I am on the under 50.5 in that spot. I just don't know. I think there's a small chance that they even take Deshaun Watson out by the second quarter in that spot. I will take some favorites here to round out. Minnesota, push that to 3.5. So I'll take Minnesota to beat the Bears minus 3.5. And Kansas City minus 3.5 at New Orleans as well. So that is the picks for week number 15. Hopefully some 5-0s by the third and fourth place guys and some 0-5s by you, but I'm okay with that.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there's so many overlapping picks in this one that I don't. It's going to be.
Thankfully, we do have consensus picks, but no one is on except for Tony with Arizona. No one else is on my picks. So Tony and I can get up there as long as my picks go right.
That's true.
All right. And since we do not have a Token Tony, it means we do not have a Token Tony DraftKings lineup this week. But we do have a William Hill 14-point teaser. I had been crushing those lately. Unfortunately, the Bengals could not cover 17 points last week, even though the Cardinals, Seahawks, and Pittsburgh and Buffalo all covered for me. So we took an L in the 14-point teaser. But we are back with another one this week. I'm feeling good about this one. Might have gotten a little cocky in this, but here we go. I will just take all the low-hanging fruit. I will take the Steelers +1, moving because they were minus 13. I'll move them to +1. The Rams are minus 17. I will move them to -3. The Ravens were minus 13. I will move them to +1. And the one that I'm most concerned that it may not happen just because, two good defenses, I am taking the over 27.5 in the New England-Miami game. God, I hope it gets there, but there's a small chance it might not. So we'll see.
I think it's 20-17. New England wins that one.
I'm okay with that. That'll work. Actually, for our contest, I need it to be 24-20.
All
right. So that's going to wrap it up for us for the tokens, both fake and real. Obviously, we did not have them this week, but Spike and I were here. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please support the sponsors. They've been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Please support them so they continue to support us. Obviously, we are hosted on 12ouncesportsnetwork.com. You can find our podcast on YouTube. Just search Vegas Sports Podcast. Zingo TV, channel 761, Saturdays at 10 p.m., Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And obviously our newest host, Spotify, where you can search 12-Ounce Sports and get all of the 12-Ounce shows in podcast form on Spotify as well. So again, for Spike, for Token Tony and Fake Token, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We will catch you on the next one. Good luck on your bets. Good luck this weekend. We are out.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.